Hi everybody, we're back. I hope you've all made it back to the second class of Brainy films. We're going to watch Petulia today, which is one of my all-time favorites. I may overuse this expression, but this is so great, and I've been waiting and waiting to show this film. It was hard to get hold of, which brings up the question of, I hope you all got the link, watched it on the link, and on that link also watch the extras, which is very important today because it was a kind of obscure guy, a producer, who was determined to make this film, to make it in San Francisco, and he looked around for a director and chose Richard Lester, who was living in London and had just done the Beatles films. Hard Day's Night was the first one, Help, which are great, great films. Richard Lester was in London directing TV commercials. And when they went to make the Beatles films, there was a whole long search for who would be the right director to work with the Beatles. It was their first film. And Richard Lester made just a terrific, terrific film. You hear the Chicago L from our studio here in the heart of Chicago. So Richard Lester did that, and we're now fast forwarding to 1968. This was the swinging 60s. I guess the swinging 60s were winding down, but we all remember 1968, I assume. And it was a time of very loose morality in the United States, and of course divorce was on the increase and marriages were failing. And this is a really unusual movie. Julie Christie, they had to have Julie Christie. She couldn't do it, so they waited a year to make it just to have her. She was the actress du jour. She still is, she's wonderful, but I mean, she was the big actress then. George C. Scott, you remember him from Patton. I mean, what casting. Richard Chamberlain, offbeat casting. Anyway, the cast was terrific. The movie was not a success. I, of course, saw the movie, loved it. I'm so puzzled by so many reviews and so many people who said to me, I didn't get it, what was happening, it was so fragmented. No. So if you have seen the movie, I hope you agree with me. No. I thought it was magnificent the way Richard Lester cut with her memory, these quick cuts, and you understood this was what was flashing in her mind at that moment, remembering something. I haven't seen that used so much, and I thought it was really, really, really excellent. And now I've dropped my cheat sheet, so wait one second, because you don't want to miss anything I have to say, just to make sure you know all this. Okay, this is also, there are scenes in this that are, I think, classic. There is the scene where the ex-wife of the newly divorced couple comes to the ex-husband's new, I don't want to say bachelor pad, but his new apartment and he's leading a single life. This is classic. It is really magnificent, that. The early rumblings of the border problems and the Hispanic influence in California. Everything, Chicago, everything is caught perfectly. The motel scene, they wanted this to be the height of modernity, and you'll laugh when you see how they check in. This was like to be Fantasyland. They would check in with a credit card, not speaking to a person. Everything was automated. Keys that open doors. I mean, it's sort of quaint, and now we're so accustomed to it. Okay, what I do want to do is read you and Roger Ebert's review of this film when he wrote it in 1968. I miss Roger Ebert so much, and I'm sure everybody does. And the more I go through these classes and I do research and I read all the reviews, the more I appreciate Robert Ebert. I agree with him most of the time. But he wrote the best review. So I'm just going to read it to you and then let you get on with it all. So this is Roger in 1968, July 1st. Try to think where you were July 1st, 1968. I know where I was, but I'm not telling. Okay. Richard Lester's Petulia made me desperately unhappy, and yet I'm unable to find a single thing wrong with it. I suppose that is high praise. It is the coldest, cruelest film I can remember, and one of the most intellectual. If I could make it move. But by that I don't mean it's filled with philosophy like Ingmar Bergman, or metaphysics like Stanley Kubrick 2001. On the contrary, it's filled with nothing at all. It is lifeless, heartless, bloodless, the expression of Lester's abstract thought about the American way of life, and it is terribly effective. Most films come with emotions wrapped inside. We pick a movie according to the emotion we desire. A musical to be happy, a Western to be thrilled. Petulia doesn't work this way. It provides no built-in emotional response at all. Instead, it glides perfectly across the screen. And the idea is for audiences to provide their own emotion by responding to it. Offhand, I can think of some other films that worked this way, but they were Italian. We are living in an amazingly, increasingly sanitary, air-conditioned, computerized, saran-wrapped, Muzak society. Roger, you should be here now and see what we're living in. Supermarkets aren't food stores anymore, but hypnotic temples of consumer spending. Destinations, Roger. Public buildings are filled these days with half-audible hums, air conditioning, and buzzes, lights. Elevators play Whistle a Happy Tune while you stare at the numbers ready to open the door. People unconsciously elevate their manners to fit these clean new environments, nodding graciously to each other in the supermarket aisles as if they were actors in a commercial for living better electrically. The world is brilliantly recreated in Petulia. Lester has buried his characters in material possessions. They live in a modern, efficient, totalitarian society of the sort that used to be called City of the Future. But now the future has arrived, and we ourselves are these future citizens. The Chicago L. Cooking with invisible rays and sleeping in computerized motels. He should know what we're doing now. Petulia is almost a poem to artifacts. Its hero, played by George C. Scott, is a doctor in a hospital so efficient that the patients seem incidental to the machines. Lester's city is also a cruel one. The film is literally filled with violence, with shattered limbs, with beatings, with the Vietnam War on television, with lies and jealousy, and with cruel insults. After Scott examines the torn leg of a little Mexican boy who has been run over by a car, he turns away. The nurse yanks at the leg. "Straighten up, you little spick." We wouldn't hear that now. Petulia has more plot than a typical Lester film. The story mostly involves Scott's relationship with his ex-wife, beautifully played by Shirley Knight. Yes. And Julie Christie, who is Petulia. There are Petulia's problems with the Mexican boy, with her husband, and her father-in-law. He's played by Joseph Cotton. But the details of the story are really incidental. It's Lester's method that is to appeal to the human animal that lives inside the citizen of society. We all live in this world and we all participate in its indifference. But when we are confronted so directly with the soulless quality of American materialism as we are in Petulia, we are repelled and disgusted. And that is the idea of this film. Okay. So, I hope you've seen it. If you haven't seen it, I hope you will see it. I will be following up with emails, and please, I supply an email and there's a list, and just click reply to all, because then we can all discuss. Anyway, this is a great film, another piece of history. Thank you very much. See you.